Is everybody in? Is everybody in? The show is about to begin.
Welcome to the podcast, concerts that made us, interviews and stories, tales from the bus. We love taking you back to when it all went down, the greatest live shows and that cheering crowd sound. It's concerts that made us, concertsthatmadeus.com.
This is James from Salem's Childe, and you're listening to Concerts That Made Us.
James, you're very welcome to Concerts That Made Us.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
It's great to have you. Now, first and foremost, Salem's Childe recently released the record Unbound. Take us deeper into it if you can.
Well, Unbound is pretty much the culmination of about 2 years worth of work. We had gone on tour with Doyle of the Misfits back 2-3 years ago, and on that tour we kind of started the principal writing for this. And then when we came home, Rob started, our guitar player, started pretty much immediately putting together demos. Uh, and from there, we just kind of worked them. Uh, we started working with a gentleman named Michael Alago from Brooklyn. Your listeners may know him. He's a bit famous for having signed Metallica to Elektra Records, amongst many other great artists that a lot of your listeners have probably heard of.
I'm sure.
Um,
I'm sure.
but we were fortunate enough to meet him through the Doyle camp on our first run through, and then connected with him again the following year when we went back out there, and really kind of set in motion the process for how we were going to think about the next step for Salem's Child. We had been unable to tour immediately following the release of our previous album, The Sin That Saves You. So we really wanted to make sure that everything was in place and lined up a lot better this time, to make sure that we can maximize our effort behind a new set of material. So that whole process wound up taking about 2 years, and we finally got it down and out to Tim over at Pavement, and they were ecstatic about it. And from there we just started getting the wheels in motion.
I like it. I like it. Now, how do you think the band has grown or evolved since 2020's The Sin That Saves You?
Well, 2020 is The Sin That Saves You was written with the band configured more or less as a four-piece. We picked up a guy that I had been playing with for several years in another band, my buddy Aaron, and he came on with us immediately after the release of the album. And so we kind of started building those songs as a five-piece with more layered guitars and melodies and things like that. And so the concept of this album was with a five-piece configuration. And we really wanted to kind of go away from some of the more progressive elements that we had embraced previously, and kind of get more like a straightforward, just kind of in your face metal feel with this album. And I think we've accomplished that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. How do you think the finished version holds up to the original vision that you guys had?
Well, that's a really interesting question. We had about 23, 24 different demos that we had originally looked at as potential candidates for this album. So over the course of the last 2 years, this album has looked very different a number of times. So basically, we sat down one day after we had all the demos completed, and listened to each of them as a group, and kind of took a vote uh, between all of us of which ones we could kind of eliminate for now, or move on to a next album or an EP in the future. And then it was a matter of taking what songs were left and figuring out which of them made sense together.
Right, right. I getcha. I getcha. That must be nearly an impossible task. I'm sure there's some members of the band had their heart set on this song, and others were like, no, that doesn't suit. How do you kind of negotiate between yourselves, if anything arises like that?
Well, I'm not going to say that didn't happen, because that happened a lot. How do you pick your favorite kid, right?
Mm,
So really, there was a lot of discussion that went on, and fortunately, we didn't have anybody that just really dug their heels in, because the concept is that just because these songs didn't necessarily make this album doesn't mean that they're not right for another one. For example, we've got one song that's almost 12 minutes long, which certainly does not fit the scheme of this album, but we all love it. and we're all in favor of getting it out there. It's just a matter of finding the right spot for it.
Right, right. I get you. I get you. When it came to recording production, is there any memorable moments that you can share with us?
Well, this one we kind of recorded a little bit differently than we had in the past. In the past, we'd all basically gone to the studio more or less together, or a majority of us at the same time, and kind of recorded as a group or with the group's input. And this one was a lot more individualistic. You know, Rob recorded his tracks himself at his house, and then Rob and I got together in my studio and recorded the bass tracks, and you know, Johnny has recorded, you know, between the two places at times, and the gang vocals and things like that at various different stages. Um, so it was a little odd because it didn't all happen at once this time.
Right. Interesting. Interesting. Would you continue to do like that going forward, or would you revert back to all doing it together?
I think that as far as a pre-production process, this worked really, really well. Uh, the production, uh, we may have been able to schedule that a little bit better with ourselves. Uh, I don't know if we'd necessarily go back to this exact approach, but I think that this is a pretty good template for how we are going to produce things in the future, more or less.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Now I have to mention, you guys did a cover on this one. She sells. I nearly said she sells seashells. She sells sanctuary. What is it about that track that you guys had to do?
Uh, well, that track was something that really Rob and Johnny had worked on kind of as a, you know, they were just doing it for fun. And we all heard it down in the practice space one day and decided that, yeah, this absolutely needed to make the album. Uh, it's a great song from a great band, The Cult. Uh, and it really, you know, all of us are kind of older guys, so you know, that's one of the songs that kind of paints the wallpaper of our childhood.
Hmm.
And you know, previously we had done a cover of Sponge's Plowed, and kind of following in the same lines, you know, what we like to do, you know, if we're going to pick a cover to do, is we kind of want to find one of those songs that, you know, everybody loved when it was around, but maybe they've kind of forgotten about, you know, these days. And, you know, you hear it and you immediately know in the back of your brain, I know this song, I know this song, you know, and as it goes on, by the time the chorus hits, you're singing along because you used to rock out to that stuff in the back of your mom's car.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Is there, besides that one, is there any tracks on the record that has special meaning to you?
I think the general consensus in the band is that the song Requiem is one of our favorite songs. Uh, Collectively. But as far as a personal favorite, I really like The Reaping. It's a song that we ended up doing with Joe Rodriguez from Pissing Razors, who actually was in the Navy with Johnny. So they're old buddies that go way back. Um, and you know, we were really fortunate to get him involved with the project and just dealing with that, you know, between Indiana and Texas, trying to get things moved back and forth, and having him come up here to shoot the video with us and do all of the production on that song with us. It was really a great experience, and we had a lot of fun with Joe. So that, you know, that there's a lot of an emotional connection there for me. Just a great experience surrounding that song. So that's my favorite.
Understandable. Completely understandable. Now, the podcast is called Concerts That Made Us. So I have to ask you some concert related questions if you don't mind.
Absolutely.
As a concert goer, what concerts would you say have made you?
Wow. To be honest with you, probably the concert that I measure all other concerts against. Ended up being a high school graduation present to me from my brother back in 1994. I went and saw Pink Floyd
Oh my
on the
God.
Pulse tour, and that was an absolutely incredible production. Um, and so, like on a grand like stadium scale, that would certainly be it. Uh, but I had an experience back in 2002 in New Jersey at a little like Polish community club in the middle of the hood for some reason. Um, there was this weekend long metal festival that we were playing, and we actually got to see Nile really up close and personal on
Oh
that tour. So
man.
that was really a fun show. So that's kind of like a smaller club type experience versus a major stadium type experience, and it's really a completely different experience
Hmm.
between the two. There's a vast difference being in a crowd of 350 400 people and a crowd of you know 20 30,000
Yeah. Yeah. It's like night and day.
for sure.
Is there a concert that you've attended that maybe fans of your music would be surprised at?
I'm getting ready to go see Beat at the end of October, which is kind of a Tony Levin, Bill Bruford, Adrian Belew, Robert Fripp era King Crimson tribute that's going on, and of course Adrian Belew and Tony Levin are still involved with the project, and they're playing with Danny Carey and Steve Vai. I'm super excited to go see that, and that might seem like it's a little out of the realm of uh, metalhead bass player guy fare, but yeah,
Sounds like it'll be pretty epic. Pretty good show. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, last weekend I saw Dillinger Escape Plan. A couple weekends we're gonna go see King Crimson. So
I like it. I like it. What's your local scene like? Is there much, I don't want to say competition, but is there much other bands fighting for the spotlight?
there's a handful of really good bands in Indiana right now uh, that are really reaching, and they're getting out on the road and under their own power and doing the thing. So it's a really exciting time. There's some guys that were in fairly popular bands, 5 or 6 years ago, that are kind of coming back around in that configuration. So people are getting really excited about that. And of course, there seems to be a lot of excitement in the local scene, which I'm glad to see about the things that are going on for us lately, which is nice because in a lot of local scenes and in this one historically, it seems like they had a whole, we hate it when our friends become successful type
Mm,
mentality. And
yeah.
that's really a drag, but we yeah, we're not seeing that this time around. So it's really encouraging.
Nice. Hopefully it continues. Jeez, yeah. And the moment we're all waiting for, your own shows. For any listeners that haven't been lucky enough to catch one, what are they like? Give us the full experience if you can.
Well, we like to the lights go down and the intro starts, and then those first couple of bars usually will open with a song off of the last album called Warpath, and it just kind of grabs you by the balls and doesn't let go. um and we like to tie the first three or four songs together and kind of just really rapid fire and really hard and heavy and get the crowd worked up into a nice little frenzy before we try and throw a couple of curveballs their way. um
Nice.
the set that we'll be touring with in October and then again at the first of the year right now is looking very, very heavy on the new album, obviously. But the selections that we've picked from our back catalog, they're all bruisers. So it's gonna be a mosh pit good time.
Sounds like a hell of a show. Something that always kind of intrigues me, and I'm kind of glad I don't have the headache of it. Is how do you put a set list together? Because you want to kind of show off the new stuff, but you want to keep fans happy with the older stuff as well.
Well, for us, it's not really a huge issue with that because, like I said, the songs that we picked from the old albums, they're kind of bangers, and the goal putting together a set list is really to just keep the crowd moving. We want to try and maybe throw in the cover, halfway through the song or through the set, to give people something to anchor themselves to. I like it, when I'm in the crowd listening to a band that I've never seen before or heard of. I like for them to come out and really kind of wow me with their originals, and then give me something that I can connect with. So we like to sort of build out that way. But really the objective, because we've got a really wide variety of material, but our objective is to really kind of uh, tailor the set to the crowd that we're playing with that night. We've played with some really hardcore acts. Recently, we had a couple of shows with Embryonic Autopsy, which is kind of classic old school death metal, which obviously we're not. But that set was extremely heavy and extremely aggressive. And then we've played with other bands that aren't quite so heavy or may even be just considered hard rock. And for those, we've got some more melodic tunes that we can throw into the set to really kind of connect with the audience, give them a picture of our versatility.
I getcha. I getcha. I'm glad you mentioned some shows there. If you think of all the shows that you guys have played, is there one that sits above the rest? It just couldn't have gone any better.
Well, I mentioned that we had the cloud cover with the last release, and kind of took that on the road with us when we went out with Doyle the first time 2 years ago. We stopped at this place in Cleveland, not Cleveland, but Columbus, Ohio, called the King of Clubs. And while we were in the middle of that song in our set, my guitar player kind of jabs me in the shoulder and kind of motions over his shoulder towards the back of the stage. And I look over and there's this guy filming. And of course, I don't recognize the guy right away. But, a couple bars later, the guitar player leans in again and says, "That's the bass player from Sponge."
Man.
And he's back there and he's filming us. And apparently he was live streaming that portion of our set back to Vinny, the singer for Sponge. So that was really kind of interesting. But man, just everything about that gig was great. The club was great, the staff was awesome. Uh, the support acts were incredible. They got the crowd into a frenzy, and by the time we got up there, we didn't have to work very hard. We just had to go up there and do our thing. Um, and it was packed. It was great. It was a lot of fun. There's nothing like playing to a full house.
Absolutely. If every night, every show could be like that, it would be absolute heaven. here's
Indeed,
a
indeed.
here's a fun one. If you think of all the shows you've played, maybe in the early days, is there one that, everything just went wrong? And how did you overcome it?
Oh wow. Yeah, yeah. One of my earliest memories as a musician was kind of one of those where we were getting ready to leave for the show, and I was living about 45 minutes away from our practice space. So our singer at the time was kind of loading up our gear in his vehicle, and it had started raining rather hard. And apparently, he had left his trunk open while he went back inside to wait out the rain.
Oh,
And my my amp had gotten completely waterlogged, so it was totally unusable. And we show up uh, to the show, and of course, there's no bass amp, and The first opening band that I approached didn't have a bass player, uh, and the other one really didn't want to lend me his amp. So we wound up kind of scrambling. I borrowed one from a local friend, but it was just a nightmare getting that all sorted out. And of course, it doesn't help. The whole time you're at the gig and you're just blazing, pissed off at the singer.
Yeah.
So those always make for some pretty interesting shows. But it's really it's kind of like that when you're on the road, though. You can plan as much as you want, but at every show, something new, interesting, and different is going to go wrong. And I was just talking with a friend the other day, and I was like, the real key to kind of being successful, throughout all of that stuff is being able to take in information, make decisions quickly, whether they're right, wrong, or indifferent, but you live with them. You commit to it and you go. The show
Absolutely.
must go on.
Exactly. Exactly. Speaking of which, when it comes to showtime, what's your guys' pre-show and post-show? How do you psych yourselves up? Then afterwards, how do you wind down?
Ah, that's a really good question because I think it's a little bit different for each of us. Johnny and I will do vocal warm-ups usually about 15-20 minutes before stage time. Um, Johnny's got a bag of lemons that he carries around with him that he sucks on constantly for about 2 hours before the show. Rob and I and I really don't know exactly what what they're off doing most of the time, but I know that Scott sits there with his little drum pad and he's going and his little kick pad and uh, just basically warming up, trying to get ourselves in shape before we take the stage, and then afterwards, it's really quick. You got to get off the stage in a matter of about 5 minutes, and get all of your gear out of there, and uh, at that point, usually I'm back helping Scott pack up his drums and getting all that loaded up so that we can see the headliner.
I like it. I like it. Before we dive into the last couple of questions, then, future plans that are set in stone. You mentioned some tours in October.
Yeah, we're actually going to go out on tour with Kissing Razors to celebrate 30 years of the band uh, down there in Texas. We've got a 2 week run from October 11th to October 19th. Uh, Several dates in Texas and Oklahoma, and I believe that they're working on finalizing one in Kansas right now. And then we'll come back home for the holidays. And after New Year's, we're going to go back out on the road, starting out in the West Coast for about 40 days, doing our own U.S. tour.
Nice. Nice. It doesn't get any better than that. How do you prepare for a long tour like that? 40 days, it's a long time away from home.
Well, fortunately, the band that we'll be going out with, and unfortunately, we haven't gotten the final dates yet, so I can't announce it. But some of the venues have. So if you're clever and you go out and search, you'll figure it out. Uh, but the band that we're going out with pretty much has all of that, all of the responsibility through their management and their companies to take care of the routing and on our end, we're basically just going to make sure that the bus is in working order, the trailer works good. Make sure that we've got everything inventoried for our merchandise and that all of the equipment's in good working order. That's a lot of work. It doesn't sound like much, but there's a lot of man hours involved in getting all that done.
I could imagine. I could imagine. Yeah. Right, we'll dive into the last couple. These are a couple of fun random ones. First off, besides music and the band, what are you currently obsessed with?
Besides music and the band, well, my current obsession outside of the band right now is getting my house torn apart and improved. My wife has been after me for several years to get some of these upgrades and things like that done around the house. So that obviously is not super exciting, but it seems to be my new obsession. Uh, I like racing cars. For several years, I did a lot of time attack with street cars, things like that. So that's a lot of fun. I know that Rob, for example, our guitar player, he does a lot of photography and videography. As a matter of fact, he's been on some pretty major projects and some things that have even taken him out of the country into Central America and things like that. So everybody's kind of got their thing and what they do in their free time.
Man, it's a good mix there. A good mix. The next one, it's a bit odd. If you had to spend 24 hours locked in a room with any musician from history, who would it be?
Oh wow. Um, hmm. Honestly, if I had to, I like to joke around and clown around and be entertained and have entertaining conversations with people. And I think that I would probably have a great conversation with the late Jim Morrison. I think that would be an interesting hour of life.
Yeah, you know what? A man after my own heart. He's my answer as well. I would cut off my left arm to be able to spend some time with him. It probably wouldn't be healthy, but be fun,
If you survived it, it'd be an incredible story.
wouldn't it? Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And the final question. So, what is your go-to album? An album you constantly return to?
Oh, the album for me that I tend to keep going back to would have to be Anima from Tool. Uh, that album was probably fundamental to me as an evolving bass player. Uh, when Originally in the very first configuration of this band, I was playing rhythm guitar, and uh, when when our singer slash bass player at the time ended up quitting, not long after the Rain gig, by the way, um, I ended up picking up the bass, and really, I didn't have the first clue what I was doing. I felt pretty good as a rhythm guitar player, Mr. Chord guy, uh, but once I made the transition, it opened up so many doors for me. It felt like I had finally found the right size pair of pants. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so when I started playing, I decided that I really needed to attack some music that seemed very difficult at the time on bass. And so I started with the first three Tool albums, and then that one, the third one there was the one that I just kept going back to.
Man, man. It's a good one. Listen, James, this has been an absolute blast now. Thanks a million.
Brian, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate you.
you know is true. Stand tall. There's nothing left to lose. Keep faith. In the fire that's inside of you. Dead God cannot punish you. Reborn. Rise and follow through. Life is only what you choose. Through fire. Through fire. Your strength will carry you. Hold fast to what you know is true. Stand tall. There's nothing left to lose. Keep faith. In the fire that's inside of you. Dead God cannot punish you. Reborn. Rise and follow through. Life is only what you choose. Through fire. We are gonna rise.
Hey guys, I really hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, please rate and review us on iTunes and Spotify. And if you're interested in signing up the Band Builder Academy, use the link in the show notes below and enter the code CONCERTS and you'll receive 10% off. So, until next time, keep rocking. Hey, what are you guys still doing here? The show's over. It's over. You can go home. Go on. We'll see you next time. We'll be here. Bye.